Well remembered.
And off you go.
Okay. Look, thank you for coming tonight. I acknowledge that I'm on Gadigal land. This land was never ceded. I put this image first because I made it in 87 you know, in preparation for 88. You know, like with my jewellery, this is the introduction of metal tools to Australia. And in 87, I was going into the BLF office once a week, where we were writing via a Gazette machine before, you know, computerization, to churches, unions and that, to raise money to bring Aboriginal people to Sydney. And I've been very involved in the Aborigine community since my last year at college in 87. I put this one with the handmade beads. This was a very early work. Liza might remember. She was in the show too. Pacific Elements was called, this is a Pacific knotting technique, which I popped this one in too to say that I'm still doing that, continuously making that work. And this was my logo, my M logo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I go here to move along. Yeah, here we go. This work was in a show in Western Australia. It's 365 handmade beads. And I was talking about the number of meals mothers make. So times 3 is about 1,000 a year, plus 20 years, you make 20,000 meals for your children. That was what. So I'm now into my beading era, when I didn't really have much equipment. So I went madly beading with everything. And these obviously hibiscus flowers, clip-on earrings. And then I got my shop, and then this is kind of a bit of an installation for Christmas at 55 Enmore Road. And I was all making this work, the lizards that I've been making ever since, and still, you know, like I was 55 Enmore Road, so they were $55. Yeah, so more bead. Bead. I'm sure I can go. I'm looking here, bead. And then, you know, the feathers started at that time too. These are obviously dyed feathers. And this is dyed emu feathers. And remember, I made one, this is only on 4 lines, but I made one on 6 lines that in 2000, a Lariat, I won the Maker's Mark prize for that. You might remember that, because Liza, because I think
2000 when? 2000
Maker's Mark. I won a prize there.
Yep.
Anyway, this was a work that was I made for the Alice Springs show. You know, like and I'll read it out because it's a, you know, a photo of a photo. Tribal ground, stolen ground, vanishing ground, standing ground, limited ground, and legal ground. So I graded the feathers, you know, not the feathers, the beads from, you know, soft pink through the red for standing ground, you know, the true colours. And then, because I don't think legal ground, I think the Aborigine people have virtually lost the land rights via the fight in the courts. This was my first work making roadkill, called roadkill. In Newtown, they had the Walking the Streets, where they gave a shop front to an artist, and I got a shoe shop, so I made shoes. This was Indigenous, what was it called? Antipodean glass slippers, my Ugg boots out of glass beads and feathers. This was the very first dog I made. And I had this show at, I think it was, at A Space, and they asked me to do a dog. I think it was about 2006. It was after the conference. Yeah, this dog, here's a few dogs I've put in here because people like my dogs. And that was a very early one, 2007, with minor, Indian minor feathers, obviously peacock feathers, cockatoo, kookaburra. They're just showing that I can do other things. And then I did a few with taxidermied heads, but people found they're a bit creepy. Then I did a few with their own beaks. Foxies, budgies, that was a big one. I love this one, but nobody buys it.
I want to see them. Don't go too fast. I'm loving them. Go. Don't. Yes.
They're so great. They're so great, Emily. I love them too.
This one, you know, like, why can't I sell that one?
I didn't.
Yes, it's bottom. Yeah. I put this one in for you, Liza, because you like this work. And this was, you know, it was about weapons of mass destruction. So a cigarette, a gun, you know, and beer, you know, a bottom of a beer bottle.
I think someone's got a speaker on and noise in the background. Maybe we should mute.
Anyway, and this, of course, in 2002, I won at Wearable Art the Max Budgerigar Brassiere with that piece. There's the back. And this work, I started doing quite a lot of work about the breast. And remember meldings. For meldings, this was the work I had in meldings. I had eight pairs of nipples, and I had them arranged like a cow or a sow or something, a sow or a dog. Yeah, and so they were, you know, these ones obviously lactating down to, you know, these were cufflinks. So just going in size, I've got a couple of close-ups of them. That's the lactating ones, I think. There. And that's sort of the beading and the feather. These are emu feathers there. And that was them at JOC, Jewelry Out of Context. And this was, I've got a close-up of them. Now this work, I entered the Bazaar Bra again after winning it, you know, but I didn't win with this piece. But it is called Self-Portrait of Breasts, and I actually think it's a stronger piece than the other one. And it was much loved, and in the museum, the Wow Museum, and Billy Connolly absolutely adored it, and I thought he might buy them, but of course he didn't. And this, in the same context, this was my friend's portrait of my friend's breast, and they are, she's had 5 children and she's Indian. So, you know, dark and quite different. This is the, you know, minor bird bra. I've sold lots of those. They went haywire. I had a gallery in Paddington at the time, and she really couldn't get enough of them. I put this one in here because it's, you know, like early feather work. And this is obviously a brooch I was looking for. And then there's where I'm stimulated by 1950s jewelry. and the little rabbit's feet, the lucky rabbit's paw. So these are called lucky claws. And that's obviously a budgie. This one's kingfisher. And here's the stole. There's Alfie wearing my stole for me. I produced a postcard with that one, that image. And there's a close-up of it. I then had a show at Tin Sheds called Minor Messiah, where I dressed Barbie dolls with using dead minor birds. I had a friend with a garden in Concord who was trapping minor birds for me. And I just had about 10 taxidermy professionally and went ahead and dressed the Barbie dolls with an Egyptian theme. So I looked at images of Egyptian gods. I mean, I can't remember. I think this was Bess, who was the music and dancing. And these are the twins that go off to, you know, taking the bull to be sacrificed. See, this is Barbie doll hair. They're whips. And this, I can't remember this one, but, you know, like hand painted all that, gosh. And then Janet Clayton, she really liked the Tin Shed show and asked me to do another lot of Barbie dolls. And these ones are called Heroes. So I did another range. And that's another one. These are more, I was trying to make the doll look more bird-like in the stance, yes. That one. And also I did this mad thing. I did a few of these mad things, which was fun. I've forgotten, in 2010, I got the residency at Sargent Gallery in Wanganui. It was 2 months and came with a show and all that sort of stuff. So here I am working away. We saw I've got the photo of that piece because this is Kingfisher Squadron. I actually thought I started doing the aeroplanes while I was on that residency, but we're looking at this to writing this, you know, thinking about my work for this show, I realized I was already doing aeroplanes then before I went to the Sargent Gallery, because I thought I started doing the aeroplanes because when the man landed on the Hudson River, and it was, everybody was saying how wonderful he was, blah, 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 blah. But I kept on saying, but he killed 12 birds or 6 birds or something. And nobody kind of mentions the birds' lives were unmentionable. The fact that he saved the people was the only thing worth talking about. And so that was why I started doing the planes. And I thought that happened while I was at the Sargent Gallery, but I don't think. And this is a squadron. So they're quite small. That's another, you know, like a different one. So they're warplanes. That gives you an idea of their size. Just the little toy planes that you get in packets of 3. But yeah, so this is of course called Deadly Squadron, and they're warplanes. I often think those, you know, I use passenger planes, but you can't always be always do everything the first time. And here's another plane I chose to have. See, they hang from the ceiling from there. They're obviously real feet and real beak in that one. And that's the underneath. Obviously, it's lorikeet feathers. And then I then did headdresses. When I had my shop, I used to sell lots of these, which is just the headband with the emu feathers on. It's just they move nicely with you. So I had a show in Wellington at Solander Gallery, and it was at the same time as I was in the world of wearable art, and she wanted me to do headdresses that was timed, you know, while the show was on. She was hoping she'd get cross, you know, publicity for it, but there wasn't really any. But quite a few, these are the sort of hats that I made. Very, can't think of the name of the woman who put the shoe on the hats. Chappelli, is it? Chappelli, yeah, I think it is. And yeah, that, like this one, just on the simple headband, the aeroplane bird, but it's just on a stainless steel wire, and it moves. It's quite fun, you know, it moves as it walks. And of course, I won that year with this piece called Sulphur Crested Frockatoo. So obviously cockatoos, feathers. So yeah, the wings. And here's this is another whole outfit I've done out of lorikeets. I get lots of lorikeets just because of Sydney and the nature of the beast. The cars and lorikeets. This was in WOW as well, and it was they asked for an army theme because it was 50, maybe 75 years since the First World War. And here I've used, you know, the kilt form, like, and the tarpa cloth, and there's plenty of feathers on there if you focus in. Like on the shoulder, I've got a bird's head and things, and sort of the Scottish theme. What in lots of the New Zealand recruitment went out to the islands and recruited lots of young men to go and fight in the First World War. And a lot of them hadn't even worn boots before, hadn't worn shoes before. And when, of course, they got on the ships to go to Europe, many of them died of lonesomeness. Many of them died of cold, and, you know, and then most of them were slaughtered. So it was anyway, it was just terrible. But I was reading up all about that before I made that piece. I'm now sort of talking about toys because, of course, a lot of work comes from toys. I do these all the time, the little things. This is quite an old necklace just made with the lizards, which I used to sell in my shop. That, you know, this is still the sort of 50s-ish theme in that, you know, like the three ducks on the wall. We've got the three, well, there's crocodiles in this case. And then, of course, you know, like those lizards that I had in the window, I'm still making them. It's a little turtle. And see, you know, this sort of toy work, straightforward. This piece is quite old, I think, from my shop. This, I started using the nuts, the seed nuts, and that's sort of my, you know, like commercial work now. I still make these. I make tons of these. This is, well, that's peacock feathers and dyed feathers, but, you know, like make them. This was a piece I think I made for a show at the Manly Gallery, which was funded by New South Wales Art Gallery, and it's 5 brooches made out of one budgie. So 2 of the lucky claws, you know, an egg shape in the middle. And obviously the taxidermied head and the tail. But it's amazing what you can make out of one little bird. Then this one was in the Wanda, oh gosh, what was it? I can't remember, Wanderary show. A New Zealand show of New Zealand jewelers, was bought by the Dowse Gallery. Obviously it's a kingfisher. this, which was in the JMGA show, and here more shells again. And I better do that one people are very fond of. And then my next kind of theme is the boxes. So I made this box while I was at Sydney College of the Arts, and I must have made two because somebody saw one somewhere and came to me and asked me to make another one. So I got them made by the jeweler that teaches at Leichhardt, and he made them, and then I just put the fur in basically. But yeah, that's the feminist form, the furry box. Yeah, and I put this because of the box themes coming again. This is me under here with my jacket on backwards. And of it, one of my works, it's basically it's mixed feathers because they're pheasants, and you know, like probably it might be an owl's nose. I'd have to look at it again, but it's been sold. Here's another one on this theme. This is the native dove, and it would be because I like the curled beaks. I don't like the straight beaks. I might have. Oh, yes. So that's obviously Laura Keats. That's a different Laura Keats box. That was the first one I made, which was probably even 10 years ago now. So that's obviously a frog mouth. But yeah, I like the way it's squashed in the corner, but it's very hard to kind of get a view of the eye, so it's less successful. Now, just as a marker, before I go on, I was commissioned to make work for a Chinese shopping centre. So yeah, I made this one, and I mean it was fun and it was well paid. So if anybody like a shopping centre comes up and asks you to make work, go ahead, because it was fun. Although, you know, like I didn't really like, everything was in boxes. Obviously I took this out to photograph, but there's the you know, the dragon. So these are just toys underneath, toys and that. And now I've got my public work on another file, and I'm going to close this file. Not quite sure how I go. And then I go to here. What's happened? Nothing. It hasn't gone.
It's okay. Double click on one of the images first.
All right. Okay. Is that the first one I've got? I thought I had another one first, but here we go. This is, you know, my friend JD, who died a few years ago. I got a residency that was one of the things that I had down to say, is most of the photos are taken by me. I generally take most of my photos, and anyway, here he is. So I had a residency at Gunya, which is sort of near Foster, and it was only 2 weeks. And my friends who came, because it was a 3-bedroom house or something, my friends came and visited me, and that was the project I did while I was there. I asked them all to wear a handbag. I called it Handbagged, and it was discussing jewelry as, you know, what makes a handbag different from jewelry. And I've got the quote here: through these images, I aim to show how a handbag is like jewelry. It is the state, has the status and the power relating to design and manufacture. What is it made of? How is it worn and carried? Is a handbag itself valuable or just a chain around our necks? And so, yeah, it was fun. And it gave, you know, everybody had, I just took up about 10 handbags and people wore them. So it was quite fun. And I just had my camera sitting ready to go out. This, yeah. So, yeah, this is a friend wearing something. Anyway, now I had my shop in 55 Enmore Road, and Sergio, who used to teach glass at Sydney College of the Arts, had the place next door across the laneway. And he had banned the burqa on this sign. It's been graffitied here. People have painted out the image and they, you know, banned Sergio. So me as a public art blog thing, I painted my fence with "Racism is Australian," which is a quote from John Pilger. And yeah, asked people to stand in front of it and I'd take their photos. So this is my friend Sione, who was in the shop with me for many years. And the blog's still working. I had it checked. Here's my friend Kathy, happily standing in front of it. Fiona. I got strangers to do it too, but I guess, see, he was just moving. He was one of the moving men. And, you know, just a stranger. But yeah, here is for the Stop the Intervention Collective, which I was very involved with. We probably had a workshop, you know, in my backyard, just painting those banners for the action in Bankstown, because they were going to bring the intervention into Bankstown. So this is, although it's a blog, it's totally financed by me and things. I thought it was worth putting up, just my different work. I put I got a grant from, you know, the Inner West Council for teaching drawing to the unemployed. So this was one of the people, I mean, that was one of my favourite drawings, was down on the doll. So that was it. We had the show at the Ashfield Library, so it was totally financed. And here we are, the people that were helping. This is, I think, where we're setting up. So yes, people are doing their little drawings and goodness knows what else. Anyway, it was good and it was financially good. And we, you know, it was lovely meeting all those people and getting to know them and working together. I did a second drawing teaching class during COVID, which I don't think it was quite as successful, but, you know, using the same principles of giving everybody who participates a pad and some pencils so that they can continue drawing. I put this in because this is very early work from Enmore Road, but it was, you know, like before computerization. So it was, you know, true photo montage. And these were postcards. And, you know, part of and also included in walking the streets, I did a thing on postcards, a feature, you know, I did an installation about postcards. I had 4 or 5 of these collaged postcards. And then I collected postcards people had sent me and had them, the text showing. Here, this is another photo montage because that was the introduction to my photo montage stuff. And this work at the Marrickville, well, it's no longer the Marrickville, it's the Inner West Council. That's the image in the round. So I took all the photographs and all the photographs of the demolition. It was amazing how hard it is to find photos of demolitions. I keep on meaning to put them up on one of those things. I didn't do them in, the computer manipulation. I got, I've forgotten his name, John. Anyway, here was the first one I did in that series, this plane with the aeroplanes. Here that is in the round, like in the flat rather than the round. So they're all Marrickville. This was Marrickville Council before the inner west. And I used those images on those boxes, power boxes. They're throughout the inner west, the power boxes. I also got the Inner West Council sponsored me to do this work about real estate, commenting on real estate signage and how when we look at real estates, we see empty buildings, we see white rooms, we see, vacantness as being important. And I know people don't live in empty spaces. They actually live in quite cluttered. And it's really the history of people that rent is totally absent from our society. So that's what these are about. And I tried to use the language of real estate agents. So petition shop front, doesn't have a car, doesn't have a shower, doesn't have a bedroom. He lives at the back of the shop. So, they were shown, the Inner West Council showed them in 3 places. So that, there were 10 altogether. And I've put in another grant to get the City of Sydney to sponsor another series like this. Here they are all up. I just on a fence. They were on a church fence, and on a building, but they're just on Corflute, and I think it was a successful project. Now I think I'm on to Bundanon. Here I'm on to Bundanon. So that's the view from your desk. So it's a roller door. It's the old garage. So, and that's kind of the accommodation. That is the writer's cottage. So you can see you've got a lovely bench with a beautiful view. I bought my own light. Valerie warned me about that. And, it's fully all the gear. Upstairs is the storage of bedrooms. I just put this, this was a piecework I made, which was for the Iran-Iraq War, I think. It's a Prussian 15 missile bent to go back on itself. And then I did another one for a different war, which a different kind of bomb for a different war. And then I was doing this again at the plane, but the silver was too heavy. I bought 0.7 silver, but the brooch would have just been too heavy, so I kind of didn't go any further with it. So then I went mad and started repousseing. And the first thing I did was I tried to do a fish, but it was sort of too heavy. And then, more repousse of various degrees of satisfaction. These were my 2 leaves covered in fire scale. Fiona came up and saw me and told me how to work the gas thing properly so that I didn't get the fire scale in that. So because I couldn't get the air vent on the flame to work. but she just got a spanner and loosened it. I mean, I could have done it myself if I'd have sort of really known what I was doing. Anyway, I said I'd do some brooch pins. I did some brooch pins. This was my sort of final repousse piece, which is of dubious quality, but it's done. Just to promote the thing, this is where I was staying. I had, a bedroom, bathroom, living room, and a share kitchen with this flat, which had 2 bedrooms, and a kitchen. And across the courtyard was the same setup. And here, this is Brooke Andrews' caravans, which could do with a bit of loving care, but shows you how many kangaroos and the banyan trees and goodness knows what. That was in the Emily, who was in the writer's cottage. And this was, photo of Rikini, who was a dancer, who was not going to do any more dancing because she was, her knees had worn out. So there we go. So that's my little story, and I don't know how long I've been on, but you can turn your things back on, and you can talk to me.
Yeah, that was great, Emily. There's 40 minutes. You did well.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It was really great.
I didn't look at my notes. I put the links on the chat, if you wanted to see any of those things in more view. And there's a link to, where they talk about my work on the radio in New Zealand as well. Critics.
Fantastic. Radka says, what amazing work. Radka's got no audio. And so Bundanon, we talked briefly about Bundanon. You enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. But I had no phone reception, so that was restful. I must say, very restful. Especially with the voting coming up, everybody was ringing me up all the time.
You must be pretty good at grant applications, Emily. You seem to have a lot of grants, and,
Well, I always say you got to be in to win.
Yeah, you're not afraid of it, which sounds pretty good.
Well, yeah. I have put a few in, and I have got a few other times.
Yeah. And
how do you find them, Emily?
Well, I suppose just because, the galleries, commercial galleries, always forward them on. So I've been involved with commercial galleries, and yeah, they forward them on. And people I know tell me when they're coming up. I haven't applied. I'm determined to get a proper one from City of Sydney, because I live in City of Sydney. The Marrickville Council, the Inner West Council, gives preference for residents. My studio's in the Inner West, so I get preference that way. But City of Sydney doesn't give me preference. So I have to compete with people from Germany and what have you.
Well, I think your work's amazing.
Thank you very much.
I think your colours, I know you're inspired by the bird palette and everything, but the way that you think outside of normal, and outside of the box is what I was going to say, and then you put all those birds in the box. I've never seen those pictures before.
Haven't you seen that work before? Yeah, I have. I'm in a show in New Zealand.
Yeah,
they've asked me for those, so I'm.
So when did you come to Australia? Like, you're a New Zealander.
Yeah, I came, before I went to art college.
Right.
And
Yeah.
art college started at 83. I went backwards and forwards, and then when I came to art college, when I decided to go to art college, remember my year there were 3 New Zealanders, 1 English, and 3 Australians, because there wasn't a course in New Zealand then.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, because I don't. Your first year was my sort of postgrad years, was it? Liz?
Yeah. Something
Yeah.
like that. I think you were 3rd, or you were still in the building. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that would have been your first year, which was 83.
Yeah.
That was our last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I finished in 85.
Yeah, I did 84, 85.
You did 83, 84, and I
83.
did,
Yeah.
because I was a year later than you.
80, 81, 82. So that's, 83, 84. She's right. Yeah. So I don't know if we ever really sort of met.
Well,
Oh, yeah, we did.
I think you were around the building.
Oh, we did. Yeah,
did.
definitely.
Certainly,
No,